Hello, everyone, and welcome to another interview in the Future Proof Your Law Firm group. Today, I am very excited to have Adam Treiger with us today. Thank you so much for being here, Adam. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. My
Yeah,
pleasure to be here.
definitely. So why don't you get started by just sharing a little bit on your background, who you are, what you specialize in, and what your superpower is?
I wish I had a superpower. My wife thinks my superpower is being able to dive down 15 feet in the ocean to rescue her iPhone, which I did last week. Other than that, I'm an attorney in California. My law firm's in Westlake Village, California, which is a suburb of Los Angeles. And I practice in two areas of law. One is business corporate transactional law, where I'm doing formations of businesses and mergers and acquisitions of businesses and contracts for businesses. And my other side of my practice is employment law, where I represent employers, also businesses who employ people and try to help them navigate the very difficult waters that is California employment law, one of the most probably difficult states in our union to have employees in if you're an employer. And in my marketing, I usually say that I work at the intersection of business and employment law, because there are lots of lawyers who do one or the other of those two areas, but there aren't very many that do both of those areas. And so when there is a matter which requires expertise in both those areas, corporate and employment, that's where I can add the most value.
Awesome. No, that sounds good. Yeah, that's very beneficial. So I'm curious, what made you want to kind of go down this path of, specializing in kind of both and being at that intersection, like you like to say?
It's funny. I think a lot of lawyers have a similar story of how they came up with their practice areas. But anyway, I was in a very large law firm when I started. I was not doing either of these areas. I was doing business litigation in a big law firm. And in that law firm, the employment law department was kind of the rock star department, where they got the best clients and they had the best stories and they seemed the happiest. And I really wanted to be one of them. So I, started doing a little work here and there for them when I could. And I petitioned the managing partner. I remember I was a very young lawyer at the time. And I said, please, I want to transfer. And he said, no. He said, you get back to your department and do the work we tell you to do, which, kind of rubbed me the wrong way. So when I eventually left that law firm and went to my next one of my, prerequisites to join the next law firm I went to was I need to do employment law. I really want to do that. And they told me, hey, do whatever you want. We don't know how to do that, but you can go ahead and learn. So I learned it on my own and became that firm's employment lawyer. And then when I left that firm and came to my current firm, which was in 1999, we just had our 22nd anniversary. One of my partners at the time did corporate law, and he was the only one of us who did. And he said, listen, I really don't want to do this myself. Does anyone have any interest? And I really did. I thought, this is really neat. I really want to be more of a business lawyer. And so I told him I would do it with him if he taught me. And so he taught me everything he knew. And in about 2 years, I was a business lawyer and an employment law lawyer. And then I realized these were two really symbiotic practice areas, because if you're a business, mostly what you need from lawyers is help with contracts and business corporate stuff and help with employees. And so I became a day-to-day counsel for all these businesses, and it's been a really great practice for me.
Sure. No, that definitely sounds so. I'm curious, because it seems like it's such a symbiotic relationship. Why do you think there aren't many other people doing something similar to what you're doing?
Well, I think it's because it's hard. It's hard to keep up with two areas of practice and have expertise in two areas. And back in the day when my grandfather was a lawyer, you could be an expert in law. You could do divorces and criminal and contracts and bankruptcy, and no one looked any differently at you. Today, that is not done. Today, you need to specialize in some area. And so, people who pick employment law, it's a full-time job just keeping up with it. People who pick corporate law, sort of the same idea, maybe not quite as hard as employment law to keep up with, because employment law changes month to month, whereas corporate law doesn't change that much. But anyway, since I just had a passion for both and really wanted to become, an advocate for entrepreneurs and their businesses, I had this passion to do that. And so I really have a strong desire to keep up both these areas. And I think you just need to be able to keep up a passion for a long period of time to do it. And most people don't have the gumption or desire to do that. So I do, and so I do. I think that's why there are so few of us.
Gotcha. No, that's cool. No, and that's good to hear. I'm glad that you're passionate about it. I'd love to know a little bit more, besides just having a passion for what you're doing, what are some other things that you think that you bring to the table for your clients when it comes to, having that intersection? I mean, obviously you have the knowledge, but, what else kind of can you bring to the table for your potential clients?
It's a great question. So, one other thing I do in my life is I'm an adjunct professor at a local university, and I teach an entrepreneurship law course, and I enjoy that. And the reason I decided to do that is basically a hobby job, is because I'm always teaching my clients. I feel very, very professorial toward them sometimes, to try to explain to them, not only what they need to do, but why, and go through all the options with them, and then try to figure out. And so I'm good at that. And I think a lot of my clients like the way I communicate with them. I try to bring pretty large concepts down to a non-lawyer's understanding. I think I do that pretty well. And another thing I was going to say too. Oh yes, and because I do both areas of law, I can see why employment law is important to the business as a whole, and I can see why the business as a whole is important to the employment law side. And in being able to see both sides instead of just being blind to one half of an entrepreneur's business or another person's business, I think I can solve problems in a different way, in maybe a more holistic way. I don't get lost in the details of really technical employment law, when getting lost in those details is going to hamper the business too much. And I try to set up businesses and their processes and their legal corporate contract stuff to take into consideration the employment law side to make things more seamless. And I think that's a very good, strong benefit. The partner I mentioned to you that taught me corporate law, he had a symbiotic relationship with his two areas too, but it wasn't mine. He did tax law and corporate contract law. Those also had a very strong symbiotic relationship. And I kind of mimicked him in doing what I do, though in different, at least one of my areas was different.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense for sure. I mean, properly communicating with your clients, and I think that can be one of the best ways to have a good relationship, because I know a lot of people probably get scared with all the legal jargon that might be in, certain documents, or when it comes to contracts is probably be overwhelming. So, I think having a teaching mindset, I've spoken to a couple other lawyers before who are also professors, and they've said that's something that they think is definitely beneficial. So, that's good to hear. I'd love to know a little bit more. Let's kind of talk about things that have been going on recently. So, with a lot of businesses, kind of either shutting down or things changing so much, how has your practice kind of changed, because of COVID?
Um, Thanks. So here in California, we had a certain number of industries that were allowed to continue to work through COVID. The legal industry was one of them. So law firms did not have to shut down. But even so, mine kind of did. The lawyers all went to their homes and worked remotely. The assistants, we kind of spread out. We had our legal assistants in the office, but they got to spread out kind of in the larger space. And so it was very safe, we thought, and they thought it was, and no problems. And so we were able to work remotely. And that was different because, before that, remote work for me was weekend work and nighttime work. I went to the office every day, always did. Clients expected me there. I saw clients at the office, yada, yada. I'm sure a lot of lawyers had these same issues, but COVID forced me home. And after a while, I got used to it. And after a while, I realized that one could be quite efficient at home. This Zoom thing that we're on right now, I never heard of. I never did
Yeah.
video conferencing. I wasn't one of those pioneers, but you quickly learn how to do it. And so Zoom became a big deal. Now COVID is waning. I am back to the office now. This call I'm taking in my home study, but because it's, first thing in the morning, but still,
Yeah,
I'm going to go to my office afterwards. And so that's back to normal. But now I bring my laptop with me even to the office, where I have a whole, large desktop set up, and the laptop is there for Zoom meetings, which I have pretty much every day. Clients are very used to it. People don't really want to drive and come in. My networking life, which I have a very robust networking life where I network with a lot of professionals. That's how I market my business the most. And in doing that, a lot of that's on Zoom too. We've all got used to it. I used to think it was a very terrible substitute, but now I realize that it's not really it's not a substitute. It's an enhancement. You can network in person when it's convenient, and when it isn't, you can network on Zoom, and you can still get to know a lot of people and make friends and learn how to work together. So I think, Zoom and being able to work from anywhere. I mean, I have a boat in San Diego, California. I go down there and I work from there. No one knows, no one cares. I don't think this is unique, but this is the biggest change for me.
Gotcha. No, I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, it's interesting, all of the changes that people have kind of had to face. And some people like it, some people like it a little bit less. But I think one thing that is definitely for sure is that, being online can definitely bring more efficiency to your law firm if you're doing things correctly. If you're putting in the right, if you're using the right technology and everything. And, something you mentioned during that previous answer is your networking. And I would love to take a couple minutes and talk about that. So, when you say, networking is one of the biggest ways that you market your business, what are you doing exactly to network? Are you going to networking events? How does that work for you?
Yeah, thanks, Luke. So I know that you're a marketing professional, and so this is sort of a marketing show a little bit. So I'm glad to talk about this. So back when I was a young lawyer, before I started to network or market or anything, when I was just trying to learn how to be a lawyer, a senior partner was talking to me, and he said, I'm going to give you the secret on how to get clients. I said, what's the secret? He said, the secret is you tell as many people as you can what you do. And that was his secret, and that slight little kernel has, morphed into a very robust networking situation for me. So look, I started off in small potatoes doing, say, local chambers of commerce, trying to meet people. That's a very inefficient way to go. I used to go to, say, a one-off networking event here, there, also very inefficient. Can't meet very many people, and even if you did meet them, you can't deepen the relationships. I've learned that the real secret to networking and being successful at it is three things. You show up often and consistently. You make friends as deep, real, lasting friendships, and you give to give rather than give to get. You just give and give and give and give, and the more you give, the more you give. It does come back around, and so to do those three things well, you have to have a consistent format in order to see the same people, albeit a lot of people, over and over and over a long period of time. So we're lucky in LA, or actually Southern California, to have started a networking group called Provisors. I think that you might have met some of my colleagues from Provisors already. Now, Provisors is all over the country. I don't know if there's one in Michigan yet, Luke, but there are certainly, I don't think there is one, but they're certainly now all over the East Coast, the South, the West. There are a lot of places now. And I am a huge supporter. The networking organization is organized into little groups, little networking groups, each one with, say, 35 people in it. Each one of those groups has a group leader. I am a group leader of one of the hundreds of little small groups that are in Provisors. And, my group has a smattering of different types of professionals in it: lawyers, accountants, consultants, bankers, investment bankers, accountants, real estate professionals. And they're all people with clients. We call them trusted advisors. They all have clients. And the whole idea is to refer business to each other so that we can help each other's clients. That's the whole idea. And you can not only do it with your own group, but you can then be a guest in other people's groups, and you can start local, and Zoom allows you to go national. But the key is to do it for a long period of time consistently. So my group meets every month. I've never missed a month, give or take. Every group meets once a month. You can meet as many groups as you want, as often as you want. But my advice to people and to myself is be consistent. Don't just go to one and don't go back. You need to go, you need to pick where you're going to go and go over and over and over again for a long period of time. I've been in Provisor since 2003. So I think this is, well, not very good. I'm not very good at math, 19 years, something like that. So that's a long period of time. And over that period of time, if you show up a lot consistently over time, make a lot of friends, and give to give, then you can't go wrong. So that's my networking. People that we network with are people who are trusted advisors who have clients. So it's not about networking to clients, it's about networking to their advisors. And it's been fantastic for me. It's been the secret to my success as a rainmaker and a person who generates business from not only myself, but people in my law firm and lots of other people in my networking group that I give business to.
Gotcha. No, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. That Provisor sounds very interesting. Yeah, I haven't heard too much about it, so they might not have a super big presence here in Michigan. But those three secrets, I totally agree with. Consistency is very important. I mean, that's what I'm trying to do with this show. I'm trying to consistently put out quality videos for everybody, because that's what people look for. And whether you're trying to grow a social media following, you're trying to, for your law firm, you're trying to do really whatever, if you're consistently putting in that quality effort, I think that's what's really going to lead to long-term success. So that is very valuable. I am curious, just something I thought of, is this Provisor similar to like a BNI type group, or what are some of the biggest differences between them, or is it,
I can speak to that. So BNI is a little older than Provisors, I believe. It's been around longer, and it's in more places, which is maybe why you've heard of it. I actually have a cousin who's an accountant in Florida, Southern Florida. He's in a BNI group. They don't have a Provisors in Southern Florida. The closest one to there is in Atlanta. So BNI is older and there's more groups, but there are a lot of differences between BNI and Provisors, and I think they're very significant. One thing about BNI is that you are in your group, as far as I understand. By the way, I only know about BNI through what people tell me. I am not in it myself, so this is only what I know people will tell me. So in BNI, you're in one group, and that's your group, and you don't go to other groups. And that's very different than Provisors. Provisors is all about guesting in lots of other groups and meeting all kinds of people all throughout. Now, second, in BNI, if you're a business lawyer, there's one business lawyer in your BNI group, and that's you. There aren't multiple business lawyers. There's one member of each profession in the chair around the table. In Provisors, we believe in the opposite. We believe that people who do the same, first of all, nobody does the same thing. Two business lawyers aren't the same. They may sound the same, but they're not. We have overlap, but not duplication. And we believe that you can network with, learn from, and even share business with someone who does almost what you do better than with anybody else. So in every Provisors group, there are multiple professionals that do similar things. In my group, where I'm the group leader, we have two other business lawyers. We have two real estate lawyers. We have three financial advisors. We have three tax accountants, and on and on. In BNI, there's just one. So that's a difference of philosophy. In BNI, you meet every single week with the same group of people. In Provisors, you meet once a month with the same group, and then you have time to go out and meet other people in other groups and be a consistent guest in other people's groups. Also in BNI, last difference I understand is that they have a broader membership, whereas in Provisors, we're limited to senior level trusted advisors. In BNI, I think lots of different business type people can be in BNI without as much of a restriction on membership that we have in Provisors.
Sure.
I think those are the main differences.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for speaking to that. I'm sure that's probably a lot of new information for a lot of people. So thank you for sharing that. I got two final questions for you, Adam. Thank you so much for all the value you've been sharing here today. My second to last question is, what is, and like I said, you've been dropping a lot of value, but what is one final thing you would share to attorneys specifically that are maybe struggling right now? What is one final nugget that you would share to them?
Yeah. If you, well, it depends what you mean by struggling. Are they struggling? You mean struggling with business development or struggling with their practice? What do you
Yeah,
mean?
sure. Well, typically we start when I ask this question, it's normally about business development. So, how about this? If they're either looking to start their own firm or looking to step away a little bit off on their own, maybe become a partner in another firm and they're struggling in that regard, what would you give to them?
Okay, on the first side, which is business development, it's as a broken record, I would say join an organized networking group. If there's only a BNI around you, then by all means join BNI. Be a joiner. Join networking groups. If you're a religious person, go to your church or synagogue or mosque or wherever you go and get involved. If you're into sports, get involved with your local little league, soccer practice. Join things and get to know people, tell them what you do and make friends and give. That's the way to generate clients, at least in my view. As for the second question you asked, I went from a large firm, 3,000 lawyers internationally, down to a medium-sized firm, like 40 lawyers in one office, down to my firm that I'm in now, which is basically 5 lawyers. And we've been with 5 lawyers since '99. I found the best quality of life, and for me, the best way to practice law in this small firm. And when people ask me the question you just asked me, I tell them, first of all, don't be afraid to take the step away from maybe being an associate at a big firm to going on your own, or maybe a partner in a place you're not happy and going on your own. Being on your own, it has a lot of freedom associated with it. You have control over your own destiny. You control over your own time. In my law firm, we have 5 partners, but each one of us really is in control of our own self. We don't foist ourselves on others. So it's kind of like being a solo in a way, with a little bit of more support. And I think it's a wonderful thing to take that plunge and build something for yourself. And even if you start slow, it's got to start slow. It's just the way it is. But as it builds, you will look back and you will thank yourself. And I think having a little bravery, especially when you're a little younger, like you, Luke, and starting, that's the time to do it. I did it when I was 30. I did it when I was 30, and that was the right time to do it. I don't know if I would do it when I was 52, which I am now. But even at 52, I would say don't be afraid. Go out and do it. Grab your freedom. And I've only looked back with happiness and satisfaction that I left those 2 firms and started my own way back when.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Adam. I think that's very good advice for sure. So my final thing for you is, if anybody, has been interested in what you've been talking about, maybe wants to reach out, maybe specifically about your kind of cool intersection, or talk to you maybe about networking, where could they learn more about you and your firm?
Thanks. So we have a website. It's www.sz, so S as in Sam, Z as in zebra, R as in Robert, LAW.com. szrlaw.com. You'll find my profile and all about me and my contact information and everything else you need. And I am very happy if anyone's out there and wants to talk more about networking. I do really enjoy talking about networking for some reason. I'm kind of an ambassador at Provisors. I teach new people how to do it well, and it's kind of one way to give back. Give to give, and I'm happy to talk about that. And yeah, if anyone has any interest in the intersection of business and employment law in California, happy to talk about that too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Adam. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Appreciate it. Hope you all have a great day, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Luke.